The Black Lily Vault had never opened for mercy. It opened for blood, inheritance, and the kind of truth royal families buried beneath beautiful lies. Its doors stood beneath the Dragon Palace, in a chapel of black marble, carved with lilies so dark they seemed grown from smoke. Dead Queen's fire burned in narrow veins across the stone, gold at the center, black at the edges. Every thief forced to touch those doors had died screaming before the court could finish naming their crime. That was why they brought Seressa Vale there in chains. Not to prove she was guilty, to make her death look lawful. She stood barefoot before the vault, with iron around her wrists and a torn servant dress clinging to her thin frame. Her left cheek bore a pale burn scar that curved from temple to jaw, silver white against her skin. More scars disappeared beneath her collar and sleeves. Old marks from the palace fire, everyone said, had ruined her face and killed the woman who bore her. The court had always treated those scars like confession, as if ugliness needed no evidence, as if a marked girl must have done something to deserve being marked. Tonight, they had found 3 royal jewels missing from the Queen Mother's reliquary. By dawn, Lord Caedran said, the thief's ashes would be swept from the vault steps. Seressa did not cry. She had learned early that tears made nobles feel generous after cruelty, and she had no wish to give them comfort. The accused was seen near the reliquary after moonrise, Lord Caedran announced. He stood to the right of the vault doors in a robe of dark green velvet, his silver beard forked neatly over a chain of office. The chain bore tiny black lilies, each one carved from morning stone. He had served 3 kings, advised 2 regencies, and buried more secrets than most priests heard in confession. His voice was patient, polished, and impossible to interrupt without appearing guilty. Around him gathered the dragon court, lords in embroidered scale, cloaks, ladies with jeweled throats, priestesses of royal memory, commanders whose swords remained ceremonial until they wanted someone helpless to fear them. They watched Seressa, with hunger disguised as justice. She stole from the dead queen, Caedran continued. There are crimes against crown. There are crimes against blood. And then there is this. A noblewoman near the front whispered loudly enough to be heard. A scarred maid touching Queen Auralith's jewels. I feel unclean hearing it. Laughter moved softly through the chapel. Seressa kept her gaze on the vault. The lilies carved across the doors seemed to shift whenever she breathed. Not move. Not truly. But the longer she stared, the more the petals resembled closed wings. At the far end of the chapel stood King Luceryn Draven, Dragon King of the Ashen Crown, son of the dead Queen Auralith, whose vault had not opened since her funeral. He wore black armor beneath a mantle of deep gold, but no crown tonight. Perhaps even kings felt uneasy before their mothers' graves. He was feared throughout the eastern kingdoms for his cold judgments and colder restraint. He did not shout. He did not threaten twice. Men who disappointed him left the palace quietly, or not at all. Yet, Seressa had seen him once, years ago, kneeling alone before Queen Auralith's portrait in the West Gallery, with one hand pressed to the painted dragon at her shoulder. A son, not a king. The memory made her look at him now longer than wisdom allowed. Luceryn's eyes found hers. They were the color of amber held over flame, not soft, but not careless. His gaze moved to her scarred cheek, then to the chains around her wrists, then back to Lord Caedran. You found the jewels on her? He asked. Caedran inclined his head. In her bedding. Seressa's fingers tightened. She had returned to the servants' dormitory after midnight to find guards already there. The jewels had been beneath her blanket in a small velvet pouch, as obvious as a knife left in a child's hand. No thief with half a mind would hide stolen royal jewels where 10 girls slept and 2 matrons searched nightly for crumbs. But Seressa was scarred, poor, and alone. That made stupidity believable. Luceryn's expression did not change. Who searched the bedding? Caedran answered smoothly. Captain Auralith and 2 reliquary witnesses. Were the servants present? Caedran's pause was brief. Very brief. No, your majesty. The hour was late, and the matter urgent. Seressa saw Luceryn notice the pause. So did Caedran. My king, the council lord said, voice lowering with grave concern. Delay risks insulting the queen's memory. The Black Lily Vault was made for such judgment. If the girl is innocent, the doors will remain closed. If she is guilty, dead queen's fire will answer. The court murmured approval. Seressa almost laughed. If she was innocent, the doors would remain closed, and Caedran would call it proof she could not access what she had stolen. If she was guilty, the fire would burn her. Either way, the court would leave satisfied. A perfect trial was one where power wrote every possible ending. Luceryn stepped closer. The chapel changed when he moved. Conversations sank into throats. Guards straightened. Even the black fire in the vault veins seemed to dim, as if recognizing the blood of the woman buried within. He stopped before Seressa. Did you steal from my mother's reliquary? No, your majesty. Her voice was steady. That surprised her, perhaps because fear had passed its peak and become something cleaner. Luceryn studied her face. Then why were the jewels in your bedding? Because whoever placed them there knew the court would look at my scars before my hands. Silence cut through the chapel. A few noble mouths tightened. Lord Caedran's eyes cooled. Seressa felt the chains bite into her wrists. She had spoken too sharply. Servants survived by making truth small enough for nobles to ignore. Tonight, something about the vault made smallness impossible. Luceryn's gaze sharpened not in anger, but interest. Your scars prove nothing, he said. The words struck her harder than cruelty would have. No one had ever said that in court. Caedran stepped forward. A generous sentiment, my king, but the vault does not judge sentiment. It judges blood guilt. Then let it judge carefully. The dead queen's fire has never been careless. No, Luceryn said quietly, but living men often are. This time the silence was not courtly. It was dangerous. Caedran bowed, but his jaw had hardened. Then, allow the ancient law to clear doubt. 2 guards seized Seressa's arms. Luceryn's hand moved slightly, as if he meant to stop them, but Caedran spoke before he could. The whole court witnesses, your majesty. If you spare her from the vault after royal jewels were found in her bedding, whispers will say you protect a servant over your mother's memory. There it was. Note accusation. Trap. Luceryn looked at Seressa. For one moment, something passed between them that was not trust, not pity, not attraction, but recognition of a blade both could see and neither could easily move around. Seressa lifted her chin. If your mother's fire wants a thief, she said, let it burn the hand that hid jewels under my pillow. A breath of shock passed through the chapel. Luceryn's eyes did not leave hers. Caedran's expression went empty. Make her touch the door, he ordered. The guards forced Seressa forward. The vault waited. Black lilies covered both doors from floor to arch, their petals sealed tight. At the center, where a lock should have been, rested a shallow impression shaped like a human palm. Dead queen's fire moved around it in thin veins, pulsing slow as a sleeping heart. Seressa's scars began to ache, not only the one on her face. The old burn marks across her shoulder, her ribs, her back. All of them woke at once, bright and sharp, like memories hearing their names called from another room. She stopped breathing. Lord Caedran saw. For the first time that night, fear broke through his polished face. Not fear that the vault would burn her, fear that it would not. The guards shoved her scarred hand into the palm-shaped hollow. The court leaned forward. Seressa waited for fire. Instead, the Black Lily Vault sighed. The sound was soft, almost tender. Gold light spread beneath her palm. The lilies carved into the doors opened petal by petal, no longer stone, no longer dead. each black bloom unfolding around lines of bright queen's fire. The chains around Seressa's wrists fell loose without breaking. The scars along her arm lit like hidden script. Behind her, someone whispered, "Impossible." The vault doors opened inward. No flames consumed her. No scream tore from her throat. Inside the chamber beyond, gold fire illuminated mountains of sealed memory jewels, dragon bone shelves, royal banners folded like funeral shrouds, and a great shape lying in the center beneath black lilies. A dragon, transparent as smoke, vast as grief. Its scales shimmered with the faint gold of a queen's crown. Its eyes opened slowly, ancient and sorrowful. King Luceryn went still. The ghostly dragon lifted its head. Then, before the entire dragon court, Queen Auralith's dead dragon lowered itself to one knee before the scarred maid, and in a voice like fire remembering a name, it said, "Lily, vault heir, you are late." For one breath, the dragon court forgot that Seressa Vale was supposed to die. The ghostly dragon remained kneeling inside the black lily vault, its vast head lowered before her. Transparent wings folded close to a body made of smoke, gold fire, and old grief. Queen Auralith's dragon had been dead for 12 years. Every child in the palace knew the story. When the queen died, her dragon had followed her into the funeral flame, leaving only ashes in a golden urn and claw marks burned into the palace stone. Yet the creature before Seressa breathed, not with lungs, with memory. "Lily, vault heir," it said again, and the chapel stones trembled beneath the title. "You are late." Seressa could not answer. Her scarred hand still rested in the vault's palm hollow, though the doors had opened around it like flowers greeting the sun. The scars along her wrist and forearm glowed in thin lines of gold, no longer looking like burns. They looked like script no one had bothered to read. Behind her, the court broke apart into whispers. "Ed, impossible. She is a maid." She opened the queen's vault. Lord Caedran did not whisper. He moved. His hand slipped beneath his velvet sleeve toward something hidden there, but King Luceryn caught the motion. "Do not," Luceryn said. The word was quiet, but it cut through every voice in the chapel. Caedran froze. For the first time, Seressa heard real danger in the Dragon King's restraint. Not loud rage, not courtly threat. Something colder, the edge of a man who had just seen his dead mother's dragon kneel to a servant girl and was deciding which lie had cost him 12 years. Caedran bowed slightly. "My king, the apparition is a vault defense. It speaks in old riddles to confuse thieves." The ghost dragon lifted its head. Gold fire flared through its hollow ribs. "Thief," it repeated. The word did not point toward Seressa. Every face turned toward Caedran. His expression remained controlled, but sweat shone faintly at his temple. Luceryn stepped closer to the open vault. "You knew it might answer her." Caedran's eyes hardened. "I knew the vault was dangerous." "No." Luceryn's gaze dropped to Seressa's glowing scars, then back to the council lord. "You feared it would recognize her." Seressa felt the accusation move through the chapel like a drawn blade. Fear touched her then, sharper than before. Not fear of fire. Fear of being turned into something even more dangerous than a thief. A claimant. A secret. A threat powerful men would rather bury than understand. She pulled her hand from the vault. The gold light did not fade. The ghost dragon watched her with sorrowful eyes. "Do not step away from what your blood was sworn to guard." Seressa found her voice. "I guard nothing. I clean floors." A few nobles flinched, as if the bluntness offended them more than the dragon. The creature's head tilted. "Then floors have kept better faith than kings." Silence fell hard. Luceryn looked as though the words had struck him across the chest. Caedran seized the opening. "You hear it, my king. Treason wears your mother's face and speaks through your mother's beast. The girl has corrupted the vault with forbidden blood magic." Seressa almost laughed. The accusation was absurd enough to be believable. Forbidden blood magic explained everything nobles did not want to name. It could swallow impossible facts and return them as convenient guilt. Luceryn turned toward her. Did you know the vault would open? No. Did you know that creature? No. Did you steal the jewels? No. Each answer grew steadier. Caedran's voice sharpened. And yet, the vault opens for you. The Queen's dragon bows. Your scars burn with hidden script. You ask us to believe this is innocence? Seressa looked at him, then at the court that had come to watch dead Queen's fire, eat her alive. I ask nothing of people who needed a vault to tell them a planted jewel was suspicious. The chapel went still. Luceryn's mouth tightened, not in anger. Something almost like approval flickered and vanished. The ghost dragon gave a low rumble that shook gold dust from the vault ceiling. Caedran's face hardened completely. Enough. The girl must be contained until the council determines whether she is weapon, fraud, or succession threat. Succession threat. The words changed everything. Nobles drew back from Seressa, as if her scarred skin had become a blade pointed at the royal bloodline. Guards glanced toward Luceryn, waiting for the order that would turn awe back into violence. Luceryn did not give it. Instead, he removed the black glove from his right hand. Seressa saw the scar on his palm before the rest of the court did. A black lily burned there. Not ink, not ordinary flesh. A mark seared deep beneath the skin, its petals closed tight around a line of gold fire. The ghost dragon lowered its head again, this time toward him. Queen's son, it said. Marked but unread. Luceryn's face went pale. Caedran stepped forward too quickly. Your Majesty. Luceryn lifted his marked hand. Who put this on me? No one answered. The silence had a shape. Caedran's shape. Seressa looked from the king's palm to her own glowing scars. For the first time, she understood that the vault had not only opened for her, it had answered something hidden in him, too. Luceryn turned to the ghost dragon. What did my mother hide? The dragon's eyes dimmed with grief. Succession truth, it said. Memory jewels, stolen inheritance, blood that was burned from record, but not from bone. Caedran's voice became steel. Close the vault. The vault doors did not move. Seressa felt the gold script in her scars pulse once, as if listening. Then a sound rose from deep inside the chamber. A child, crying. Not loud. Not near. Buried inside a jewel somewhere among thousands. Luceryn stopped breathing. The ghost dragon looked past Seressa into the golden dark. The first memory wakes, it said. Caedran's composure shattered. Kill the maid, he ordered. The guards surged forward. Luceryn moved first. He stepped between Seressa and the blades, bare-marked hand raised, amber eyes burning. No one touch her. Caedran smiled then. Thin and terrible. My king, he said softly. That is exactly what your mother said before she died. Caedran's words struck the chapel harder than any blade. That is exactly what your mother said before she died. For the first time since the vault opened, King Luceryn Draven looked less like a ruler and more like a son standing over a grave that had begun speaking back. The guards froze behind him, swords half raised. No one wanted to be the first to disobey the Dragon King. No one wanted to be the first to obey Lord Caedran and strike down the girl Queen Auralith's own dragon had bowed to. Seressa stood behind Luceryn, close enough to see the black lily mark on his bare palm trembling with gold fire. It answered her scars in small pulses, as if the wounds on both their bodies had been written by the same hand and hidden in different chapters. The child's crying came again from inside the vault. Zoft, buried, unbearably afraid. Luceryn's shoulders tightened. What child? The ghost dragon did not answer at once. Its gold smoke body flickered, and Seressa realized with a chill that the creature was not fully free. Black lily chains, almost invisible against the vault's darkness, coiled around its wings and throat. Even kneeling, even speaking, even bowing to her, The dead queen's dragon remained bound inside the chamber it guarded. Caedran saw her notice. His eyes sharpened. "My king," he said, voice smooth again. "Your grief is being used against you. The vault feeds on royal memory. The longer it remains open, the more it will shape pain into lies." Luceryn did not look away from the golden dark. "Then why are you so eager to close it?" Caedran's mouth tightened. Seressa stepped to the side, enough to see past Luceryn into the vault. Shelves curved into the distance, each holding jewels of different sizes and colors. Sapphires burning with stormlight, rubies pulsing like hearts, pearls clouded with smoke, black diamonds that swallowed gold fire and returned it as shadows. Memory jewels, thousands of them. One jewel, near the center, glowed brighter than the rest. A small amber stone. The crying came from there. Seressa's scars ached. Not with pain this time. With direction. She took one step toward the vault. Luceryn turned immediately. "Do not." The command was sharp, but his face betrayed him. He was not trying to rule her. He was afraid the vault might take from her what it had taken from everyone else. Seressa almost obeyed. A lifetime of servant instinct rose before thought. Stop when ordered, lower eyes. Let kings decide where danger belongs. Then the child cried again, and something inside her answered before fear could. "If the memory is a lie," she said, looking at Caedran, "why are you afraid I will touch it?" The ghost dragon's eyes brightened. Luceryn exhaled once, slowly. Caedran's expression went flat. "Because girls who survive fire often mistake scars for destiny." The line was meant to wound. It did. But Seressa had lived too long with people using her scars as explanation for anything ugly. Tonight, the vault had opened gently beneath them. Tonight, the queen's dragon had knelt. Tonight, her scars had become script. She would not let Caedran turn them back into shame. Seressa walked into the Black Lily vault. The court gasped behind her. Luceryn followed one step, then stopped at the threshold. The black lily mark on his palm flared, and the invisible chains around the ghost dragon tightened. The dragon gave a low, pained rumble. "Queen's son cannot cross unread," it said. Luceryn went still. "What does that mean?" Caedran answered before the dragon could. "It means your mother sealed the vault against royal interference." The ghost dragon's head lifted. "It means the mark on him is a lock." Seressa stopped before the amber jewel. Luceryn stared at his palm. "A lock on what?" he asked. The ghost dragon looked toward Caedran. "On grief," it said. "On memory. On the moment he was taught to mourn the wrong death." The chapel seemed to tilt. Seressa reached for the amber jewel. Caedran shouted, "If she touches that stone, she dies a traitor." Luceryn's voice cut across his. "If she dies, you answer before me." Caedran laughed softly. "I have answered before kings, since before you could hold a blade. And perhaps that is the rot," Luceryn said. Seressa's fingers closed around the jewel. Gold fire flooded her scars. The vault vanished. She stood inside a memory. Rain lashed against palace windows. Queen Auralith, younger and alive, knelt on the floor of a nursery with blood on her hands and a black lily burning in her palm. In her arms was a child wrapped in gold cloth, not Luceryn, smaller. A baby girl with a birthmark shaped like a lily beneath her collarbone. Auralith was weeping. "You cannot keep both," Caedran said from the doorway. He looked younger in the memory, less silver in his beard. Same patient cruelty. Auralith held the baby tighter. "She is the firstborn. She is a succession war. She is my daughter. She is a blade pointed at your son." The queen looked toward the cradle beside her. Inside it, a young Luceryn slept, no more than 3, unaware of the men deciding which child history would be allowed to remember. Caedran stepped closer. "Choose, your majesty. Hide the girl or bury both children under noble war." Auralith looked at the baby girl. then at Luceryn, then at the black dragon waiting beyond the balcony in the rain, its eyes full of grief. "I will hide truth, where only the lily vault blood can find it," she whispered. The memory shifted. Fire, screaming, a servant woman running through smoke with the baby girl in her arms, Auralith placing 3 royal jewels into a black lily box, Caedran watching from the shadows. Then the queen turned toward someone Seressa could not see. "Guard her," Auralith said. "Scar the record if you must, but let her live." Seressa gasped back into the vault. The amber jewel cracked in her hand. The court stared from beyond the doors, pale and silent. Luceryn's face was colorless. "What did you see?" he asked. Seressa looked at him, then at Lord Caedran. Her voice shook, but did not break. "You had a sister. You had a sister." The words did not echo. They landed too deep for that. King Luceryn stood at the threshold of the black lily vault, one hand braced against the open door, the black lily mark on his palm burning so brightly the gold fire showed through his fingers. For a moment, every mask he had worn before the court king, judge, weapon, son of the Ashen Crown, fell away. Only the child in the memory remained, a boy asleep in a cradle, while adults decided which life could survive history. The court behind him did not speak. Even the nobles who loved scandal understood that this was not gossip. This was succession. This was blood. This was the kind of truth that could split a kingdom down its spine. Lord Caedran recovered first. Of course he did. "A desperate lie," he said. "The vault shows whatever grief needs to see." Seressa turned toward him, the cracked amber memory jewel still hot in her scarred hand. "Then why did the queen tell someone to guard her?" Caedran's eyes sharpened. Luceryn looked at him slowly. "Answer her." The council lord bowed his head with careful sorrow. "Your Majesty, your mother suffered greatly before her death. Fever, grief, paranoia. She believed enemies were everywhere. She hid jewels, burned letters, accused loyal men of treason. This girl has touched a vault full of your mother's madness and brought back a hallucination." The ghost dragon's gold eyes flared. The black lily chains around its throat tightened, but it spoke through the pain. Queen Auralith was not mad. Caedran's mouth hardened. Dead beasts should not testify. Seressa felt the vault shift around her, not angry, listening. The shelves of memory jewels glowed one by one, each small light waking like an eye. The dead queen had not left one memory. She had left thousands. The chamber itself had become a witness, too vast for Caedran's patient voice to bury. Luceryn stepped forward again. The black lily mark on his palm flared, and he stopped with a sharp breath. The invisible barrier at the threshold held him back. Not violently, not cruelly. Like a locked door recognizing the wrong key. Seressa saw the humiliation flicker across his face before he buried it. His mother's vault would open to a scarred maid, but not to him. Caedran saw it too, and smiled faintly. "My king," he said. "Even this proves the danger. The vault rejects royal blood while embracing hers. What clearer sign of corruption do we need?" Seressa looked at Luceryn. This was the trap. Turn his wound into suspicion. Make him fear her because the vault trusted her. Make the court see every revelation as a theft from him. She had been accused of stealing jewels. Now she could feel them preparing to accuse her of stealing grief. Seressa closed her fingers around the broken amber jewel. "I did not ask it to open," she said. Luceryn's eyes returned to hers. "No," he said quietly. "But it did. A lesser man would have made that sound like blame. He made it sound like surrender to fact." The ghost dragon lowered its head towards Seressa. "Lily, vault heir, take the second memory." Caedran moved at once. "No." The word cracked like a whip. The court looked at him. Too quick, too afraid. Seressa knew then that the second memory mattered more than the first. Luceryn knew it too. "What is in it?" he asked. The ghost dragon's eyes dimmed. the hand that carried the child from fire. Seressa's scars began to ache again. Not all of them. Only the long, pale scar along her collarbone, hidden beneath the torn edge of her servant dress. It burned so suddenly she almost dropped the jewel. Luceryn noticed. His gaze moved to the scar, then away just as quickly, with a restraint that startled her more than staring would have. "Seressa," he said, "do you need to stop?" Her name sounded different now. Not accused. Not summoned. Asked. Caedran's expression twisted with disgust. "She is manipulating you with weakness." Seressa laughed once, softly. It surprised everyone, including herself. "Weakness?" She lifted her scarred hand. "You dragged me here in chains because planted jewels frightened you. Do not call me weak because I survived the fire you keep circling." The ghost dragon gave a low rumble of approval. Luceryn's mouth almost moved. Not quite a smile. Something more dangerous to Caedran. Belief beginning where pity should have been. Seressa turned back into the vault. The second memory jewel had already begun to glow. It was not amber. It was black, shaped like a lily bud. Its surface veined with red fire. It floated from the shelf and hovered before her scarred chest. The scar along her collarbone answered. Seressa reached for it. Caedran's voice went cold. "If she touches that jewel, she will not leave this vault human." The chapel stirred in fear. Luceryn's hand moved toward his sword. Seressa looked back at him. "Do not." He froze. The command should have offended him. Instead, he listened. That was the first thing about him that truly frightened her. Not his power, his ability to stop using it. Seressa touched the black lily jewel. The vault vanished again. Fire swallowed the world. She was no longer in the queen's nursery. She was in a servant passage beneath the palace, smoke crawling along the ceiling, bells screaming overhead. A woman ran through the darkness with a baby bundled against her chest. The woman's face was turned away, but Seressa knew the shape of her hands. Burned hands. Hands that had once brushed hair from Seressa's forehead in a room she had forgotten. The baby cried, and the woman whispered, "Hush, little Lily. Live first. Truth can wait." A shadow stepped from the smoke. Caedran. He held a blade of dead queen's fire. "Give me the child," he said. The woman backed away. "She belongs to the vault. She belongs to succession. She belongs to herself." Caedran's trokea. The blade did not cut flesh. It cut memory. The woman staggered, clutching the baby as white fire crawled over her face, her shoulders, her arms. Scars bloomed wherever the flame touched, not killing her, but sealing something beneath her skin. The woman looked down at the baby and pressed one burned hand to the child's collarbone. "Forgive me," she whispered. "They will call the scars damage. Let them. One day the vault will read what they refuse to." The memory shifted violently. A child in a servant cradle. A black lily birthmark burned away beneath false fire. A name erased. A safer name given. Seressa. She stumbled back into the present with a cry. The black jewel cracked between her fingers, and gold light spilled across the scar under her collar. The court stared. Luceryn's face had gone still with horror. Seressa looked at him, unable to breathe around the truth opening beneath her skin. The baby had not only been his sister, the baby had lived. Caedran stepped back. Too late. The ghost dragon rose to its full height behind Seressa, gold fire pouring through its wings. "Firstborn daughter of Auralith," it said before the entire court. "Hidden lily, blood of the vault, true elder heir of the ashen crown." Seressa's knees weakened. Luceryn whispered, "No, not denial. Grief. Recognition." The ghost dragon bowed its head lower. "To both of you," it said. The queen left one final memory. Then every black lily in the vault opened at once. Every black lily in the vault opened at once. The petals were not petals anymore. They were eyes. Thousands of them, carved from gold fire and morning stone, turned toward Seressa and Luceryn, as if the dead queen herself had finally found the hour she had hidden inside the walls. The court stood beyond the doors, pale and silent. No one laughed now. No one whispered that scars were proof of guilt. The chapel had become a throat, and the vault was about to speak through it. Seressa could not move. Firstborn daughter of Auralith, hidden lily, true elder heir of the Ashen Crown. The words circled her like impossible birds. She had been a servant, longer than she had been a person in anyone's eyes. She knew how to scrub marble without leaving streaks, how to sleep lightly when guards searched the dormitory, how to turn her scarred cheek away before noble children stared too long. She did not know how to stand beneath the weight of a mother she had never been allowed to remember. Luceryn stood at the threshold, unable to cross, the black lily mark on his palm burning like a closed wound. He looked at her, as though the vault had not given him a rival. It had given him a ghost, with his mother's blood. Caedran recovered his voice too late. "This is sedition." The ghost dragon turned its head. Gold fire flashed in its mouth. "No," it said. "This is inheritance." The final memory rose from the heart of the vault. At first, it appeared as a single jewel, larger than the others, suspended above a pedestal of black lilies. It was clear as water and filled with moving flame. Inside it, Seressa saw Queen Auralith, not the painted queen from palace halls, not the dead mother mourned in gold. A woman with loose dark hair, blood on her sleeves, and a newborn daughter in her arms. The memory expanded until the vault walls vanished. Seressa stood inside the queen's last chamber. Rain struck the windows. War horns sounded beyond the palace. Auralith stood beside a cradle where young Luceryn slept, one small hand curled beneath his chin. In her arms, the baby girl stirred, a black lily birthmark visible below her collarbone. Caedran stood near the door, with 3 council witnesses behind him. "You cannot name her heir," he said. "The houses will never accept a firstborn daughter tied to the Lily Vault line. The succession will fracture before dawn." Auralith looked at him with exhausted fury. The law is older than their preference. The law is what survives enforcement. The queen held the baby tighter. From the balcony beyond, her dragon lowered its huge head into the rain, gold eyes burning with grief. Auralith turned toward the creature. "If I die tonight, guard what they will twist." The dragon bowed its head. Then Auralith faced the memory, as if looking through years directly into the vault where Seressa stood. "If my daughter lives," she said, "she lives as herself before she lives as heir." Seressa's breath caught. The queen continued, voice shaking but clear. "If my son grows under their hands, he must not be made enemy to his own blood. Hide the truth until the vault. Blood can open it, not to crown one child over the other, but to keep them both from being used by men who call fear stability." Luceryn made a sound at the threshold. Small, broken. Caedran stepped forward in the memory. "You choose sentiment over the realm." "No," Auralith said. "I choose a realm where my children are not weapons." The memory shifted. Fire in the corridors. Auralith placing the 3 royal jewels, the ones later planted in Seressa's bedding, inside a black lily casket. One jewel held the firstborn record. One held the servant passage escape. One held the queen's command to the dragon. Then Auralith pressed her marked palm against her infant daughter's chest. "Live hidden," she whispered. "But not erased." The baby cried. Auralith kissed her forehead. "My Serelith." The name struck Seressa so hard she nearly fell. Not Seressa. Serelith. The name she had lost. The memory changed again. Caedran outside the chamber, whispering to soldiers. "The girl cannot remain a question. If the queen will not choose, we will." Ablade. Smoke. The servant woman running with the baby. The queen turning back to Luceryn's cradle as armed men entered. Caedran's voice, cold and final. "History cannot carry 2 heirs." Auralith's dragon roared. Then the memory cut to the vault itself. Queen Auralith stood before the black doors, wounded, one hand pressed to the dragon's muzzle. Dead Queen's fire crawled up the creature's scales, as if preparing both for burial. "If they make my daughter scarred," the Queen said, "let the scars be red. If they make my son crowned, let the crown be questioned. If they make them enemies, let this vault shame me for failing them." The ghost dragon in the present bowed its head. The memory dimmed. Auralith's final words remained suspended in the air. "Luceryn, if you hear this, she was not hidden to replace you. She was hidden so you would not be forced to kill her." The vault returned. Seressa stood trembling with gold fire on her scars and a name burning under her collarbone. Luceryn's face was white. He looked at her, then at Caedran. "You knew." Caedran did not deny it now. His expression had gone still, in the way of men who choose murder only after every lie fails. "I protected the realm from a succession war your mother was too weak to prevent." Luceryn stepped forward, and the threshold burned him. The black lily mark on his palm flared, locking him out. Caedran saw the pain and smiled. "You cannot enter, my king. Your mother made sure the vault would choose her." Seressa looked down at her glowing scars, then at Luceryn, trapped outside the truth his mother had left for him. The vault had opened for her blood, but it had spoken to both of them. She walked to the threshold and held out her scarred hand. Luceryn stared at it. Caedran's smile vanished. "Do not," the council lord said. Seressa did not look at him. "You asked what your mother hid," she said to Luceryn. "Come see it yourself." Luceryn placed his marked palm against hers. Gold fire burst between them. The black lily mark on his hand opened, not unlocking the vault for the king, unlocking it for the brother. The barrier shattered, and somewhere deep inside the black lily vault, Queen Auralith's dead dragon began to weep fire. The barrier did not break like glass. It opened like grief finally being believed. Gold fire rolled from Seressa's scarred palm into Luceryn's marked hand, burning through the closed black lily, branded there since childhood. He did not pull away. Neither did she. The vault light wrapped around their joined hands, not binding them as king and subject, not weighing one blood above the other, but recognizing what the court outside had been trained to fear. Siblings, hidden and crowned, scarred and marked, both shaped by the same lie. Luceryn crossed the threshold. The moment his boots touched the vault floor, every memory jewel in the chamber lit at once. The shelves blazed with thousands of captured truths, succession oaths, royal births, dragon deaths, secret pardons, stolen inheritances, letters burned before they could reach the people who needed them. The Black Lily Vault was not a treasury. It was a graveyard of what the court had chosen not to remember. Luceryn staggered. Seressa caught his arm before he could fall. The motion startled them both. She was used to being the one shoved, dragged, steadied only when someone wanted her moved. He was used to being too feared for anyone to touch without permission. For one breath, they stood too close beneath the gold fire, each discovering the other was real in a way memory had not prepared them for. Then, Queen Auralith's dragon wept fire. The flames fell from its enormous ghostly eyes in slow streams, striking the vault floor and becoming black lilies where they landed. The creature bowed its head until its horned brow nearly touched the stone before them. "My queen's children," it said. Seressa flinched at the word children. Luceryn's hand tightened once around hers, then carefully loosened, as if he feared turning comfort into capture. Outside the vault, Caedran's voice cut through the chapel. How touching. The court sees it now. The scarred maid places her hand upon the king, and suddenly his mother's vault calls them kin. The nobles stirred. Seressa looked back. Caedran stood beyond the open doors, framed by black lilies and dead queen's fire, his face pale but composed. He had lost the first lies, so he was choosing a better one. "Ask yourselves," he said to the court, why the girl needed to touch him before the mark opened. Ask why the vault speaks only through her scars. Ask why a servant accused of theft now claims not merely innocence, but blood above the king. A murmur began. Soft at first, dangerous. Seressa felt it like a draft against burned skin. The court did not need Caedran to make them cruel. He only had to give their fear a path. Luceryn turned, amber eyes darkening. Enough. Caedran bowed slightly. My king, I am trying to save you from enchantment. No, Luceryn said. You are trying to survive evidence. And what evidence do we have? Caedran's voice sharpened. A ghost. A vault of memories no living priest has verified. A scarred maid who touches jewels and sees what benefits her. A dragon that died with your mother and returns only when this girl stands before it. The court shifted again. Seressa's scars cooled under the weight of their suspicion. It was strange how quickly wonder could curdle into accusation when power felt threatened. The ghost dragon lifted its head, gold flame gathering in its throat, but Seressa stepped forward. Do not, she whispered. The creature stilled. Luceryn looked at her, surprised. Seressa kept her gaze on Caedran. If the dragon burns him, he becomes a loyal servant killed by forbidden magic. Caedran's eyes narrowed. She had guessed correctly. Luceryn's expression changed. Not admiration exactly. Something sharper. He was beginning to understand that she had survived court cruelty not by being fragile, but by learning its teeth. Seressa looked around the vault. There are more memories. Caedran's mouth tightened. Luceryn followed her gaze. Which one? The ghost dragon's tail moved through gold fire, pointing toward a shelf deep inside the chamber. There, a cluster of jewels hung beneath a black lily crest. Unlike the others, they were wrapped in thin chains of green crystal. Caedran's color drained. Seressa saw it. So did Luceryn. The Dragon King's voice dropped. What are those? The ghost dragon answered. Council memories, sealed without the Queen's blessing. Caedran snapped. Private state records. Stolen truth, the dragon said. The green chains tightened around the jewels. A scream rose from one of them. Not a child this time. A woman. Seressa's breath caught. Her scars burned along her shoulder and ribs, the old fire marks waking one by one. Luceryn looked at her. You know that voice? I don't know. Her hand pressed against her side. But my scars do. They walked deeper into the vault together. This time, Luceryn did not need to be led by her hand, but he did not step ahead. The difference mattered. The court could still see them from the threshold, the Dragon King and the scarred maid moving side by side through his mother's forbidden archive, while Caedran watched like a man counting exits in a burning room. Seressa stopped before the chained jewels. One green crystal cracked. Inside it, a woman screamed again. The ghost dragon lowered its voice. This memory was cut from the servant who carried you out. Seressa's throat tightened. The woman, with burned hands. The woman who had saved her. Maybe raised her. Maybe loved her in whatever fragments the court had left. She reached for the jewel. Caedran shouted, Touch that, and you condemn every servant who helped hide you. Seressa froze. There it was. Not denial. Hostage. Luceryn's face turned lethal. What did you do? Caedran spread his hands. What order required? Every person who touched the hidden child was bound to silence. If the memory opens fully, the old silence burns backward through their bloodlines. Seressa's hand shook inches from the jewel. The court watched. The vault waited. Luceryn stepped closer, voice low enough only she could hear. You do not have to pay for every truth at once. Seressa closed her eyes. For the first time all night, she wanted to believe him. Then the woman inside the jewel whispered through the crack. Little Lily, do not leave us unnamed. Seressa opened her eyes. Her scarred hand closed around the green-chained memory, and every servant mark hidden across the palace began to burn black. The green-chained memory did not open. It bled, Black fire spilled from the cracked jewel and ran across Seressa's scarred hand like ink, searching for old wounds. She tried to release it, but the chains wrapped around her fingers, thin and cold, tightening until every scar beneath her sleeve burned in answer. Beyond the vault doors, screams erupted through the palace. Not from nobles, from servants. Luceryn turned toward the chapel as the sound rose through the floors, through the walls, through hidden stairways where palace workers had been listening from shadows. Somewhere above, a maid cried out. Somewhere below, a boy screamed for his mother. The black fire moved through marks no one in court had admitted existed. Caedran smiled. Not widely. That would have been too honest. Council silence marks, he said. Old, but loyal. Every servant who helped hide the queen's daughter carried one. Every child born from them carried a softened echo. The girl opens their memories. The marks punish the bloodlines that kept her alive. Seressa's stomach turned. You marked them for saving me? I marked them for hiding succession evidence. Luceryn's voice dropped into something deadly. You marked children. Caedran looked at him with tired patience. Children grow into witnesses. The memory jewel pulsed in Seressa's hand, and the woman's voice inside it whispered again. Little Lily. Seressa gripped the jewel harder, even as the black fire crawled up her wrist. A vision shattered open. She saw a servant corridor filled with smoke. The woman with burned hands stumbled through it, the baby pressed to her chest. Her face was younger than Seressa had expected, plain and brave and terrified. Flames crawled along the ceiling. Behind her came Caedran's soldiers. The woman stopped before a laundry chute, tore open the side wall, and shoved the black lily casket inside first, then the baby. Seressa felt the memory from the infant's side. Heat, darkness, the frantic beat of a woman's heart. Your name is Auralith, the woman whispered. But live as Seressa. Live ugly if they make you. Live small if they force you. Just live. A sob caught in Seressa's throat. The vision jerked. Caedran's blade found the woman's back before she could run. She fell without dropping her hands. Where is the child? He asked. The woman lifted her burned fingers and smiled through blood. What child? Caedran knelt beside her. You will forget the name you died for. No, she whispered. He pressed green crystal against her mouth. The woman screamed as the memory was cut from her. Not killed. Cut. Stored. Sealed. Her face remained alive in the jewel while her body in the corridor went still. The vision shifted again. A servant dormitory years later. A little scarred girl sitting alone on a narrow bed, touching the pale burn along her cheek. An old laundry woman sitting beside her, hands twisted and burned, eyes empty of something she should have remembered. The woman looked at the child with aching confusion. I do not know why, she said softly, but when you cry, my hands hurt. Seressa came back to the vault with tears on her face. She lived. She whispered. The ghost dragon bowed its head. Without the memory of why she loved you. That was worse. Worse than death, almost. To save a child and then have the love cut out, leaving only pain with no name. Luceryn stood beside her, his face carved in fury and grief. Where is she? Caedran answered. Dead. Most likely. Servants often are. Seressa looked at him then. Something in her went very quiet. The scars on her hand stopped burning gold. They turned white. The ghost dragon drew back slightly. Not in fear, but in recognition. Caedran saw it and lifted his hand. The screams outside sharpened. Careful, Lily. Vault air. Every step deeper into truth burns someone who kept you breathing. You may expose me, yes, but you will turn your rescue into their punishment. The court listened in horror. Some nobles looked ashamed. Others looked relieved. Relieved that the truth had become costly enough to fear again. Luceryn stepped forward. Put the marks on me. Caedran blinked. Seressa turned to him. What? Luceryn did not look away from Caedran. You Want a royal bloodline to pay for the memories? Use mine. Caedran laughed once. Noble, but impossible. The ghost dragon's eyes flared. Not impossible. The chapel shook. Luceryn looked at the dragon. Tell me how. The creature's voice lowered. The queen's son bears the lock. The queen's daughter bears the key. If both accept witness, council's silence can be broken without killing those it bound. Caedran's smile vanished. Seressa understood only part of it, but the part she understood frightened her. Accept witness means pain. The ghost dragon looked at her with ancient sorrow. Yes. Luceryn turned to Seressa. No command entered his face. No kingly promise. No glorious vow to make the decision prettier than it was. Only choice. Offered bare. They suffered because they protected you, he said. And because my crown was guarded by lies. Let me carry what I should have asked about years ago. Seressa wanted to hate him for saying it. Instead, she hated that she believed him. The green chains tightened around her hand. Beyond the vault, the servant screams continued. She placed the bleeding memory jewel between them. Luceryn set his marked palm over hers. Gold fire and black flame collided. The pain was instant. Seressa's knees nearly buckled, but Luceryn caught her with his free arm. This time, she let him. Not because she was weak, but because standing alone had never been the same as being free. The ghost dragon rose behind them, wings unfolding through the vault's gold fire. Speak the witness, it commanded. Luceryn's voice shook only once. I witnessed the hands that carried my sister from fire. Seressa closed her eyes, tears slipping down her scarred cheek. I witnessed the names they cut from memory. The black fire leapt from the jewel into both their palms. Across the palace, every hidden servant mark flared white instead of black. The screams stopped, and from every corridor, dormitory, kitchen, stable, hatchery, and ash room, forgotten names began rising toward the Black Lily vault like sparks returning to the flame. The forgotten names rose through the palace like embers through a broken chimney. They came from kitchens where old women dropped copper pots and clutched their throats as names they had buried, without knowing returned to their tongues. They came from stables where boys with half-healed silence marks fell to their knees, whispering family words their mothers had been forbidden to speak. They came from servants' dormitories, hatchery stairs, laundry tunnels, ash rooms, and hidden passages where generations had lived beside memories cut out of them. Each name became a spark. Each spark flew toward the Black Lily vault. Seressa and Luceryn stood, with their palms pressed over the bleeding green memory jewel, while the sparks entered the chamber one by one. The pain did not vanish, but it changed. It was no longer a punishment traveling through hidden marks. It was grief finding a path out. The ghost dragon spread its wings, and the sparks settled across its transparent scales, like stars returning to a dead sky. Then the voices began. I carried the Black Lily casket. I hid the child beneath the laundry chute. I burned the false birth record. I lied to the guards. I raised her without remembering why. Seressa shook beneath the force of them, not because they accused her, because they loved her from places even memory had failed to protect. Luceryn's hand tightened over hers, and this time she knew it was not to hold her still. It was to keep both of them standing beneath a truth too large for either bloodline alone. Beyond the open vault doors, the court listened in horror. Lord Caedran's face had lost its polished patience. His eyes moved from the ghost dragon to the nobles, from the nobles to the chapel exits, from the exits back to Seressa. He was counting again. Allies, witnesses, possible lies. The problem was that the dead had begun speaking faster than he could bury them. A spark of gold fire landed before the court and widened into the image of an old laundry woman with burned hands. Her body was bent with age, but her eyes were suddenly full. Seressa knew hair, not from the first memory, from life. Marae, who had bandaged her cheek when noble children threw hot wax. Maid, who had forgotten why her hands hurt whenever Seressa cried. Maid, who had died 2 winters ago with no family name carved on her ash stone because servants in the lower palace were buried by duty, not blood. The memory of Maid turned toward her. "My little Lily," the woman said. Seressa broke. Not loudly, not dramatically enough for court taste. Only a small sound escaped her, but Luceryn heard it and moved closer without stepping in front of her. Maid smiled, through tears of fire. "I knew you, even when they cut knowing from me," Caedran snapped. "Enough of this necromancy." The ghost dragon's head turned slowly. "This is not necromancy," it said. "This is record." The word struck the chapel like judgment. Maid's memory faced Luceryn next. "Your mother did not betray you, little prince. She hid your sister so men would not make you her executioner." Luceryn's face tightened. He bowed his head to the memory of a servant woman. The court saw it. So did Seressa. A dragon king bowing not to noble blood, not to military rank, not to a crowned ghost, but to the woman who had saved his sister and been erased for it. Maid's form lifted one burned hand toward Seressa. "Your scars were not punishment. They were cover. We made them ugly in the court's eyes because beauty would have made them look too closely." Seressa touched the pale curve along her cheek. All her life, the scar had been the first thing people saw, and the last thing they let her be. A disguise, a wound, a shield, a cruelty done for survival, but cruelty all the same. Maid's voice softened. "Forgive us when you can, not before." The memory dissolved into gold fire and entered the ghost dragon's chest. Seressa's hand slipped from the jewel. The green chains had melted. The black fire was gone. Across the chapel, servants stepped from the shadows. Not many at first. A reliquary cleaner, 2 ash boys, a woman from the kitchens, a hatchery scribe with ink on his sleeves. Their eyes were wide with returned memory, and each bore a white-lit mark where council silence had once hidden. One by one they faced the court. "I remember," said the reliquary cleaner. "I remember," said the scribe. "I remember," whispered the kitchen woman, tears cutting through flour on her cheeks. "Lord Caedran ordered the jewels planted." Caedran turned on her. "Careful." Luceryn's voice cut through the chapel. "No. Let her be careless with truth." The woman trembled, but continued. The jewels were placed in Seressa's bedding before she returned from the west corridor. Captain Auralith searched the bed only after Lord Caedran's page told him where to look. Captain Auralith went pale. Luceryn looked at him. The captain dropped to one knee. "My king, I was told the Queen's memory required discretion." "And did discretion require a girl to burn?" The captain had no answer. Caedran lifted his chin. "You think this saves her? Even if the jewels were planted, the succession remains impossible. A hidden daughter cannot simply step from a vault and unmake law." Seressa wiped her face with the back of her scarred hand. "No," she said. "But she can ask who wrote it." The vault answered her. The shelves shifted, opening a narrow path of gold fire toward the deepest chamber. At the end stood a single black lily door, smaller than the first vault doors, sealed with Queen Auralith's crest and Luceryn's closed palm mark. The ghost dragon lowered its head. "The law was not unmade," it said. "It was rewritten." Luceryn stared at the door. "By whom?" The dragon looked at Caedran. The council lord smiled again, but this time it looked like a wound. "By the only people practical enough to keep the kingdom from tearing itself apart." The small black lily door opened. Inside, on a pedestal of Queen's fire, lay a crown split cleanly in 2. The crown split in 2 did not look broken. That was the first terrible thing. It rested on a pedestal of Queen's fire, both halves separated by the width of a blade, each curved with perfect intention. One half was black gold, carved with dragon wings and the old crest of Queen Auralith's blood. The other was pale gold, smoother, newer, marked with the ashen crown sigil Luceryn had worn since childhood. Between them lay a thin strip of burned parchment, sealed under glass. The court stared from beyond the open vault doors. No one breathed loudly. A split crown was not a relic. It was a confession. Luceryn stepped closer to the inner chamber, but the black lily mark on his palm flared again. This time, it did not stop him. It hurt him. Seressa saw his jaw tighten as the old spell tried to remind him that certain truths had never been meant for a crowned son. She reached for him without thinking. His eyes flicked to her hand. Seressa stopped halfway, suddenly aware of the court, the memory jewels, the ghost dragon, the impossible word sister still shaking inside them both. Luceryn looked at her, then placed his marked palm against her scarred one. The pain eased. Neither of them spoke of it. Together, they entered the chamber of the split crown. Lord Caedran's voice followed them like poisoned smoke. "Careful, Your Majesty. Some truths are kept sealed because kingdoms cannot survive them." Seressa did not look back. "No, some truths are sealed so men like you can survive kingdoms." The ghost dragon gave a low rumble. Luceryn's mouth moved once, almost a smile, but grief took it before it could form. Seressa reached for the burned parchment beneath the glass. The moment her fingers touched it, the queen's fire rose. Auralith appeared above the pedestal, not as memory trapped in a jewel now, but as a royal command recorded in flame. She wore no crown. Her hair was unbound, her face pale from blood loss, her eyes fierce enough to make every noble beyond the door lower theirs. "If this record is opened," the dead queen said, "then the court has failed both my children." Luceryn closed his eyes. Seressa could not. Auralith continued. "My daughter Seralith was born first, carrying the lily vault blood through my mother's line. My son Luceryn was born second, carrying the ashen crown blood through his father. By ancient law, the firstborn inherits the throne. By war law, the dragon-bound child holds the armies. Men will use this to divide them." The flame image turned toward the court as if she could still see the cowards she had outlived. "So I wrote a bridge." The split crown lifted from the pedestal. One half drifted toward Seressa, the other toward Luceryn. The crown was never meant to be worn whole by one child while the other was erased. If both live, both must witness succession. The elder holds memory, the younger holds fire. Neither may rule without the other's consent until the court proves it can obey truth without demanding blood. A savage silence filled the vault. Seressa felt the half-crown hovering before her like a question made of metal. Not a gift, not a reward. A weight. Auralith's voice softened. "Seralith, if you hear me, I am sorry I could not give you your name without endangering your life." Seressa's throat closed. "Luceryn, if you hear me, I am sorry they taught you a crown was safer than a sister." Luceryn's hand tightened around hers. Caedran laughed. It was the wrong sound in such a sacred silence. "Beautiful," he said. "Tender. Impossible. A dead woman's dream recorded in fire while armies waited beyond the gates." Luceryn turned toward him. "You rewrote it. I preserved the realm. You erased my sister. I prevented your murder." Seressa looked at him then. "By arranging mine?" Caedran's face hardened. "By ending uncertainty." The phrase chilled the vault more than hatred would have. Ending uncertainty. That was how men like him dressed murder until it looked like governance. The ghost dragon lifted its head. The parchment beneath the crown bears another hand. The queen's fire flared again. The burned parchment turned over inside the glass. At the bottom of Auralith's decree, another line had been added in black ink. In the event of female survival, suppress all claim, preserve son as sole heir, eliminate Lily witness if awakened. The signature beneath it was Caedran's. The court erupted, not fully against him. That would have been too easy. Some nobles shouted in outrage. Others shouted in fear. A few cried that the queen's decree would fracture the realm. Several commanders looked not at Caedran, but at Seressa, as if measuring how quickly a scarred maid could become war. Caedran raised his voice above them all. "Look at her! A servant with scars and a ghost at her back. Will you kneel because a vault tells you to? Will you let the ashen crown be split by a girl who has scrubbed your floors?" Luceryn took one step forward. Seressa caught his wrist, not to stop his anger, to claim the answer herself. She stepped out of the inner chamber, with the half-crown of memory hovering at her shoulder, gold light spilling over her scarred cheek. "You are still trying to save them from the sight of me," she said. Caedran's mouth thinned. Seressa faced the court. "So look." No one moved. She lifted her chin. "Look at the scars you called proof. Look at the maid you wanted burned. Look at the sister you were taught would destroy the king by existing." The chapel held still. "I will not beg you to love the truth. But you will not bury me again to keep your lies comfortable." The half-crown beside her turned, and every black lily carved in the vault opened toward the court. Luceryn stepped beside her. The other half-crown hovered near his hand. Caedran saw them together, and understood the danger was not that Seressa would take the throne from Luceryn. It was that Luceryn might refuse to be used against her. His expression turned murderous. "Then let the kingdom choose blood," Caedran said. He struck the floor with his council staff. The 3 missing royal jewels, the ones planted in Seressa's bedding, rose from his sleeve, burning with stolen queen's fire. They spun above the chapel, cracked open, and released 3 black lily shadows, shaped like execution dragons. The ghost dragon roared. Caedran smiled at Seressa. "Let us see whether the dead queen's daughter survives her mother's own fire." The execution dragons rose from the stolen jewels, without flesh. They were made of black lily shadow, and dead queen's fire, long-necked, wingless, and wrong. Their bodies flickered between memory and flame, each one carrying a different piece of the law Caedran had twisted. Theft, treason, succession. Their eyes burned gold at the center, black around the edges, like Queen Auralith's fire forced to look through a murderer's hand. The court scattered from them. Seressa did not. She stood at the mouth of the black lily vault, with the half-crown of memory hovering near her scarred shoulder, gold light spilling over the burned curve of her cheek. Fear moved through her body so sharply it almost felt like calm. She had spent her life surviving smaller executions. Laughter, suspicion, hunger. The way nobles looked at her scars and decided they already... This one only had teeth. Luceryn stepped beside her, the fire half of the crown burning near his hand. "Caedran." The warning in his voice made several nobles fall silent. Caedran smiled. "Do not look so wounded, your majesty. These are your mother's jewels, her fire, her judgment. If the girl is truly her daughter, let the queen decide whether she lives." The execution dragons circled Seressa. The ghost dragon surged forward from the vault, but the black lily chains around its throat snapped tight. It roared without sound, trapped by the same old bindings that had kept Auralith's truth buried for 12 years. Seressa looked at the 3 shadow dragons. They did not feel like beasts. They felt like verdicts, Maudibaimen, dressed in her mother's name. The first lunged. Luceryn moved before she could breathe. Gold fire burst from his palm, striking the shadow across its jaw and driving it sideways into the chapel wall. Black lilies exploded into sparks. The court gasped. Caedran's eyes sharpened with satisfaction. "There," he called. "The king defends the claimant. The realm sees where his loyalty has gone." Murmurs rose instantly. Seressa heard them. Sister, usurper, enchantment, weak king, succession war. Luceryn heard them too. His jaw tightened, and for a heartbeat she saw the trap. If he protected her with royal fire, Caedran would use it as proof she had turned the king against the realm. If he did nothing, the queen's stolen fire would burn her alive. Power had corners. Seressa reached for his wrist. "Stop." He looked at her as though the word hurt worse than flame. If I stop, they kill you. If you fight alone, he wins. The second execution dragon crawled up the wall, its black fire claws digging into stone. The third hovered near the vault ceiling, dripping Queen's flame like molten tears. Luceryn's eyes stayed on Seressa. Then tell me how. The question changed the air between them. Not command. Not rescue. Trust. Seressa looked at the half-crown of memory, then at his half, burning with fire. Her mother's decree returned to her. The elder holds memory. The younger holds fire. Neither may rule without the other's consent. Maybe the crown had never been only law. Maybe it was a weapon against exactly this. She lifted her scarred palm toward him. Luceryn understood. He placed his marked hand against hers. The two half-crowns flared. Memory and fire met between their palms, not merging into one crown, but circling each other like twin dragons recognizing the same sky. The pain was immediate. Seressa's scars burned open with images. Her mother hiding the jewels, Maid carrying the baby through smoke, Caedran signing the altered succession, the court choosing convenience every time truth asked for courage. Luceryn's fire answered with grief. A child at his mother's funeral, a boy crowned too young, a king taught that love made him vulnerable, a man now standing beside the sister he had been raised never to know. The execution dragons lunged together. Seressa spoke before fear swallowed her. Queen Auralith did not make fire to kill her children. The crown halves rang. Luceryn's voice joined hers. She made it to reveal who tried to. Gold fire burst outward. Not from him alone. From them both. The first shadow dragon shattered into hundreds of black lily petals, and each petal became a memory of Caedran planting lies in royal records. The second collapsed into images of soldiers ordered to burn servant passages. The third twisted in the air, fighting the light, until its chest split open and released the final stolen jewel. Inside, it was not fire, it was a witness. Queen Auralith herself, kneeling before her dragon, blood on her lips, whispering into the jewel with her last breath. If Caedran uses my fire against either child, let the flame name him traitor. The jewel turned toward Lord Caedran. Dead Queen's fire left the dragons and rushed across the chapel floor in a single bright line. Caedran stepped back, but the fire followed the black lily chain of office around his neck, climbing link by link. For the first time, he looked truly afraid. My queen, he whispered. The fire struck his chest. Caedran screamed as every black lily on his council chain opened and released a hidden record. Forged decrees, murdered witnesses, altered birth scrolls, sealed servant memories, false charges laid against Seressa, and orders prepared for her execution before the jewels had even been found. The court saw everything. No one spoke for him now. Seressa's knees weakened, but Luceryn kept their palms together. The ghost dragon's chains cracked. One black lily chain fell. Then another. The dragon rose to its full height, no longer kneeling from bondage, but standing in witness. Caedran collapsed to one knee, smoke rising from his robes. It was necessary, he rasped. The court would have torn them apart. Luceryn looked down at him, face pale and merciless with grief. You tore us apart first. Caedran turned to Seressa, hatred naked now. And what will you do, scarred princess? Burn me with your mother's fire? Crown yourself over my ashes? The chapel waited. Seressa looked at the queen's fire circling him, then at the nobles who had nearly believed every lie because the truth wore a servant's dress. No, she said. You wanted death to make this simple. She closed her scarred hand. The queen's fire became chains around Caedran's wrists. You will live long enough to hear every memory you buried. Caedran's eyes widened. Seressa stepped closer, the half-crown of memory burning beside her, and this court will hear them with you. The black lily vault opened deeper behind her. Every shelf of memory jewels lit at once. and from within the golden dark, thousands of stolen truths began to wake. The memory jewels did not wake quietly. They opened like a storm of eyes. Gold, amber, black, ruby, pearl, and smoke-colored stones blazed across every shelf of the black lily vault until the chamber became a sky made of buried truth. Each jewel held a life, a decree, a death, a promise, a lie polished until it looked like law. For years the court had walked above them, feasted above them, judged servants above them, never knowing the palace floor was only a lid. Now the lid had opened. Voices poured out. Not all at once. That would have been noise. The vault was older than panic. It chose order. First came the jewels of succession. A royal midwife appeared in gold fire, swearing before Queen Auralith that the firstborn child was a daughter marked by the black lily. A priest of record appeared next, weeping as Caedran forced him to scrape Seralith's name from the birth roll and replace it with an ink blot labeled stillborn. A commander appeared after him, admitting he had sealed the servant passage the night the child was carried away, then lied that the fire had spread naturally. The court listened, some with horror, some with guilt, some with the careful stillness of people calculating how much truth they could survive. Seressa stood at the vault threshold with dead queen's fire still coiled around Caedran's wrists. Her scars glowed bright beneath her torn sleeves, not as shame now, but as script being read aloud by a room that had once refused to see her. The half-crown of memory hovered near her shoulder, dark gold and black lily light. It did not settle on her head. She was grateful for that. A crown would have felt like another hand, deciding what she was. Luceryn stood beside her, his half of the crown burning near his palm. He looked at each memory without turning away, even when the records named his own coronation as unlawful, even when they showed nobles cheering while a hidden child was hunted through smoke below their feet. A jewel of green fire opened. Maid appeared again, younger, alive. Blood on her mouth, holding baby Seralith beneath her cloak. I carried her because the queen asked me, the servant woman said. But I kept her because no child should be killed to make grown men comfortable. A sob broke from somewhere among the palace servants. Seressa's throat tightened. Caedran, bound on one knee, lifted his head. Sentiment, he rasped. All of it. Sentiment dressed as evidence. Kingdoms are not held together by nursery tears. Luceryn looked at him. No. You held this one together with graves. Another jewel opened before Caedran could answer. This one burned black. Inside it, the council gathered after Auralith's death. Caedran stood at the center, calm and elegant, the 3 royal jewels laid before him. The son must reign alone, he said in the memory. A hidden daughter is not a person. She is a war waiting for a banner, a younger lord asked. And if she is found? Caedran answered without pause. Then she must be made guilty, before she can be made known. The chapel went cold. Seressa looked at the jewels planted in her bedding. There was the whole design. Not sudden suspicion, not a desperate cover, a sentence written years before she had ever touched the Queen Mother's reliquary. Make her guilty before she can be made known. Luceryn's hand closed around nothing, as if reaching for a sword he had chosen not to draw. His voice was quiet when he spoke. You planned to kill her long before tonight. Caedran's eyes found his. I planned to save you. No, Luceryn said. You planned to own me without competition. The ghost dragon moved behind them, vast and luminous, the last of its black lily chains breaking from its wings. When the final chain fell, the chapel trembled. Queen Auralith's dragon was no longer bound to guard silence. It stood free as witness. Then the vault opened the cruelest memories. Not Caedran's crimes, the court's conveniences. A noblewoman remembering that Seressa had been whipped for a broken vase she had not touched, because scarred girls invite suspicion. A jeweler admitting he had seen the royal stones before they were placed in the servant dormitory, but feared losing his post. a priestess of memory confessing that she recognized Auralith's seal on the jewels and said nothing because the council paid her temple. One by one, faces in the chapel lowered. Seressa felt no triumph, only exhaustion. Truth was not clean. It did not turn everyone brave once spoken. It filled the room with the smell of old rot and asked who would keep breathing. Caedran laughed softly. There. You see, if guilt condemns me, it condemns them all. Burn the court, little Lily, or admit that every throne survives because someone agrees not to remember too much. Seressa looked at the nobles. Some flinched. He had found the last trap. If she demanded perfect innocence, Draventhorn would have no one left to stand. If she forgave too easily, the vault would become theater and nothing more. If Luceryn defended the court, he betrayed her. If he condemned it all at once, he might shatter the realm his mother had tried to save both children for. The half-crown at Seressa's shoulder pulsed. Memory. Luceryn's half answered. Fire. Seressa turned to him. Your mother said the elder holds memory, and the younger holds fire. He nodded once. Then do not burn what memory still needs to name. His eyes searched hers, and understanding moved between them. Luceryn faced the court. No one leaves this chapel until their memory has been heard. Panic rose immediately. He lifted one hand, and Dead Queen's fire circled the doors not to kill, but to seal. Those who confess will stand before witness. Those who deny what the vault proves will stand before judgment. Those who were afraid will not be treated the same as those who carved the knife. Seressa looked at him then, and something in her chest eased. Not forgiveness, respect. Caedran's face darkened. You would let her teach you justice? Luceryn did not look away from Seressa. Yes, he said. The single word struck the court harder than flame. Then he turned to Caedran. And you will be first. The Queen's fire chains tightened around the council lord's wrists and dragged him toward the center of the chapel. The ghost dragon lowered its head until its golden eyes were level with his. Lord Caedran of the Black Lily Council, it said. Name the child you tried to erase. Caedran's mouth clamped shut. The fire burned brighter. Not his flesh. His silence. Seressa stepped forward, scars glowing, half-crown hovering, voice low and steady. Say my name. Say my name. Seressa's voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The Black Lily vault carried it into every corner of the chapel, across every jewel, every carved lily, every face that had come to watch her burn and now stood trapped before the truth they had helped bury. Dead Queen's fire circled Lord Caedran's wrists, bright and patient, burning not flesh but refusal. Caedran knelt at the center of the chapel. His silver beard was singed. His council chain lay blackened around his neck. The polished calm he had worn for decades had cracked, but pride still held the pieces together. He looked at Seressa and smiled with ruined dignity. Seressa Vale, he said. The fire tightened. Agasped. The ghost dragon lowered its head. The name you gave her to hide the crime is not the name you stole. Caedran's jaw clenched. Luceryn stood beside Seressa, his own half-crown burning near his hand, but he did not speak over her. The court watched him waiting, and that waiting became its own confession. A king who could have ended the moment with command had chosen witness instead. Seressa stepped closer. Her scars glowed beneath the torn sleeve of her servant dress, the burn along her cheek, the mark beneath her collarbone, the pale lines across her wrists, every wound Caedran had counted on the court, misreading now burned like letters in a royal archive. Again, she said. Caedran's eyes flicked to Luceryn. You will let her do this? Luceryn's answer was cold. I will hear what you made sure I never could. The dead queen's fire climbed Caedran's arms. His mouth opened, but no sound came. For the first time, the master of polished speech discovered what it meant to have truth locked behind pain. Seressa felt no pleasure in it, only a hard, clean certainty. Caedran bowed his head. Serelith Auralith Draven, he rasped. The chapel shuddered. The name did not merely enter the air, it returned. Every black lily in the vault opened wider. The half-crown of memory flared beside Seressa. The ghost dragon's eyes closed as if a burden had finally been placed where it belonged. Beyond the chapel, bells began to ring across the palace, not coronation bells, not mourning bells, but the old witness bells that had not sounded since Queen Auralith's death. Seressa nearly fell. Luceryn caught her before she touched the floor. His arm went around her carefully, giving support without claiming weight that was not his. She could feel his heart beating hard through his armor. "Do not carry it alone," he said quietly. For a moment, she wanted to rest there, just for one breath. But the court was watching, and Seressa had spent too much of her life being placed into meanings chosen by others. Thief, scarred maid, cursed girl, hidden princess, succession threat. She straightened. Luceryn let hair. The small release mattered. Caedran looked up, hatred burning through exhaustion. "A name does not make a ruler." "No," Seressa said, "but stealing one makes a traitor." The ghost dragon exhaled gold fire across the floor, and the jewels opened again. Not all of them this time, only those tied to Caedran's hand. The court saw the orders prepared before Seressa's trial. The planted jewels, the silenced servants, the falsified birth record, the rewritten succession decree, and finally the private oath Caedran had sworn over Queen Auralith's body, that no daughter would ever split the crown while he lived. When the last memory faded, no noble defended him. Caedran laughed once, bitter and hollow. "So kill me." Seressa looked at him for a long time. He wanted a clean ending. An execution would make him a symbol for frightened houses by sunset. Martyr to stability. Victim of a scarred girl's revenge. Proof that the hidden daughter had come not to restore truth, but to punish everyone who feared her. "No," she said. Caedran's face tightened. Seressa turned to the court. "Lord Caedran will live. He will stand in the Hall of Witness until every memory, jewel tied to his seal, has been opened. Every servant he silenced will be named. Every record he altered will be corrected. Every house that helped him will answer in public." Panic rippled through the nobles. Luceryn's fire half-crown brightened. "And the ashen crown will enforce it." Seressa looked at him. He met her gaze without hesitation. Then he turned to the court. "Not to protect my claim, to answer for it." The words changed the chapel more than any flame. The Dragon King stepped into the center beside his sister. Not above her, not against her. Queen Auralith's decree stands. The crown was never meant to be whole while either child was erased. Memory and fire will witness succession together until the kingdom has heard what was buried. A noble lord shouted, "Two heirs cannot rule one throne." Seressa answered before Luceryn could. "Then perhaps the throne is not the first thing we should save." Silence fell. She lifted her half-crown. It did not settle on her head. Instead, it turned in the air, and memory jewels rose from the vault shelves one by one, circling it like dark stars. Luceryn lifted his half, and Queen's fire joined the circle. The two halves did not fuse. They formed a ring wide enough for space between them, a crown that refused to become a cage. The ghost dragon bowed low. "Witness crown," it said. Seressa felt the rightness of it. Not rule by one hidden wound. Not succession decided by fear. Not a throne that could only survive by burning the inconvenient child. A beginning. Fragile. Dangerous. Unfinished. But true. Luceryn turned toward her. "What do you choose?" The question reached deeper than the court understood. He was not asking whether she wanted a throne. Not only that, he was asking whether she wanted to remain, whether she wanted his alliance, whether she could bear to build anything from the ruins of what had been done to her. Seressa looked at the open vault, at Marae's fading memory among the dragon's golden scales, at Caedran kneeling in chains of Queen's fire, at the nobles who would spend years trying to make truth convenient again, at the brother she had gained in the same night. She lost the simplicity of hating every crown. "I choose witness first," she said. Rule can wait until Draventhorn learns how to hear memory without killing the one who carries it. Luceryn bowed his head. Then I stand with witness. A soft sound moved through the chapel. Not applause. Relief. Fear. Grief. The first breath after a long lie. The ghost dragon turned toward Seressa. Lily, vault heir, what of me? Its vast body shimmered. Now that the queen's last commands had been heard, the creature was no longer bound by chains. But grief still held it close to the vault. Seressa stepped toward it and placed her scarred hand against its lowered brow. Gold fire warmed her palm. You guarded her truth long enough, she whispered. Rest if you wish. The dragon's eyes softened. Then it looked toward Luceryn. The king's face broke open just enough to show the sun beneath. Did she suffer? He asked. The dragon's answer came gently. Yes, but she died loving both of you. That was the truth Caedran feared most. Luceryn closed his eyes. Seressa reached for his hand before thinking. This time, she did not pull away. He held her fingers like something sacred and fragile, though she was neither as breakable nor as holy as men wanted hidden women to be. She was scarred, angry, tired, royal by blood, servant by history, and still more herself than any name could contain. The ghost dragon lifted its head one final time. Gold fire rose from its body in slow streams, not burning, only illuminating. The flames flowed into the memory jewels, sealing them not shut but safe. Its wings spread across the vault ceiling, vast and translucent, then dissolved into a rain of black lily petals made of light. One petal landed on Seressa's scarred cheek. For the first time, the scar did not feel like something she needed to explain. When dawn touched the chapel windows, the court was still there. No one had been allowed to leave. Captain Auralith had surrendered his sword. The priestesses of royal memory had begun opening the first public record. Servants who had once hidden behind pillars now stood before nobles and spoke names into parchment. Caedran remained bound in Queen's fire, forced to listen as the first witness, a kitchen girl with trembling hands, said what he had ordered her mother to forget. Luceryn stood beside Seressa at the open vault doors. You owe me nothing, he said quietly. She almost smiled. Kings keep telling hidden girls that after taking everything, pain crossed his face, but he accepted it. Then I will spend my life answering before asking. Seressa looked at him. There was no instant forgiveness in her, no easy romance to make the wound beautiful. But there was the memory of him stepping between blades and her body, the sound of him saying yes when Caedran asked whether he would let her teach him justice, the warmth of his marked palm opening the vault, not as king, but as brother, and something else, too. A dangerous tenderness neither of them was ready to name. Start with the records, she said. I will, and the servants marked for silence. They will be heard first. And me? His amber eyes lifted to hers. Seressa's voice softened, though it did not lose strength. Do not decide what I am before I do. Luceryn bowed his head over her scarred hand, not kissing it, not claiming it, only lowering himself before the truth she carried. Then I will wait outside the door you choose to open. The words settled inside her carefully. Behind them, the black lily vault remained open, not as a tome, as an archive, as a wound finally allowed air, as a promise that no scarred girl would be burned simply because powerful men found her easier to blame than believe. Seressa turned toward the rising sun beyond the chapel arch. The witness crown circled above her and Luceryn, two halves held apart by memory and fire, not united yet, not broken either. And somewhere in the gold-lit vault behind her, Queen Auralith's final black lily bloomed,